So this poster represents a single subject study for a youth female soccer athlete using the 10-5-3 training method, which is just, the 10-5-3 training method is just reps for like sets you do based on what kind of movement it is. So 10 for functional, 5 for strength, and 3 for power. And it just analyzes it and shows a lot of positive changes, and I believe it's 4 weeks between different strength and power measurements. It just visualizes that strength and conditioning for youth athletes is beneficial and safe. And it's just a good foundation and just shows how that can be progressed and what that looks like.
So for this study, we looked at interlimb lower body asymmetry on force plates and how that connects to change of direction performance in professional men's arena soccer league players. So we looked at 32 of the players and we got counter movement jump, drop jump, and 10-5 rebound test jumps all on force plates. And then we also got their 505 change of direction. And then this is kind of like the images of how we set that up, and then also how we set up the 10-5 test, the 505 test. And then we just looked at the correlation between all of these, and what we found is that despite like common belief and assumption that these things are that they're correlated, they're actually not correlated based on the data that we collected. So we wouldn't recommend using any type of like interlimb asymmetry to kind of predict or like change of direction performance in this population. But that being said, change of direction should still be used as a performance metric for arena soccer, and also interlimb asymmetry should be used as a metric for testing for any type of like load performance, especially in youth populations, as well as injury populations, because that is still a good metric for those.
It's a representation of our 3 programs and an example of like an implementation of how to do it. So we have our like learn to lift, strength school, and athlete development, which it just continuously progresses. As you can see that the reps and sets increase with the volume. The goal of it was just to be able to help other coaches be able to look at it and look at our 10-5-3 method that Dr. Johnson created and be able to create and implement their own program with youth athletes. So our 10-5-3 method is 10 is for like your foundational lifts, your squat, deadlift, stuff like that. 5 is going to be for strength, so trying to build strength, and then 3 is going to be for your power movements. So we've learned that through our Learn to Lift program, that's really just kind of trying to teach kids the proper form and coming in. They only come in like once a month, and we haven't really seen anything from that. Our strength school, we've seen a little bit of increase in strength, but our athlete development program has seen the most increase in like power strength. We've noticed that athletes are getting faster and stronger and are able to be more adaptable and move to different things, or be able to translate that to sports a little bit better.
I actually did a case study on one of our American football players that's in NCAA Division I. He has recently gotten diagnosed with sinus tachycardia, so we basically wanted to look at what his heart rate response was during the summer training period or summer conditioning period and that fall training camp period. So that's kind of what our poster looked at and was the primary purpose of this study. And then the secondary purpose of this study was to compare his heart rate response, or his peak heart rate response, to his age predicted heart rate max. And so what we kind of saw with the results was that on average, he was hitting around 163 beats per minute during that summer training period, and then on average was around 150 beats per minute for that fall training camp period. And then for peak heart rate, his age predicted heart rate max was 194.84, and you can kind of see that here with that dotted line. And he typically, within his heart rate response, remained pretty much over that age predicted heart rate max for a good majority of that summer training and fall training camp. So just the practical applications and conclusion of this was that improvements can be seen in athletes that do have sinus tachycardia, but for using age-predicted heart rate max, it may not necessarily be applicable to their situation. So this basically went to go and show that heart rate monitoring is actually useful in the sports science world, especially making sure that our athletes are staying safe and healthy.
Well, this poster goes over the counter movement jump reliability assessment for D1 football players, and specifically looking at bigs, mids, and skills, and looking at which metrics are more reliable for determining readiness in the sport for D1 athletes. So we did a simple counter movement jump, and then we broke it down into all the different metrics. All the bolded ones, like jump height, jump momentum, those are like the all-around best ones or more reliable ones for each position. And then we broke it down into the bigs, mids, and skills. And for the most part, they were pretty even for most of them, but the bigs had the most reliable data. This one's gonna help basically individuality for readiness work and examining whether a player is ready for continuing on in their work.
Alrighty, so this was a pretty cool opportunity. Previously, last fall, I was able to work with some of the football guys who were training for the Big 12 Pro Day. Within their 9-week training period, we were able to catch and collect a lot of sprint data and force plate data. I was able to take that data and then recruit some exercise science students throughout Robinson and compare their data to the team and be able to look at a lot of differences and similarities between those two. Obviously, first and foremost, you would expect to be higher heights and weights between the athlete group compared to the control group. Those are expected, but it was pretty interesting to see how we had relatively no significant differences between jumps from the athlete group to the control group, and we saw relatively no significant differences between the sprint metrics from the athlete group to the control group. More so, what this tells us is, yes, if you take in consideration that the athlete group is moving and performing in these jumps and these sprints comparable to the control group, they're doing this relatively plus or minus 10 kgs heavier and about, this is in centimeters, but relatively 10 or 5 inches taller in height. So these are significantly bigger individuals moving at these speeds comparable to other individuals who are a lot lighter and a lot smaller. Another part of this study is looking at the comparison and correlation between jump metrics and sprint metrics. And we were able to see that relatively all of the key jump metrics we were looking at, which were braking rate of force development and peak relative propulsive force, we were able to see pretty significant correlations between all of the jump metrics and the sprint metrics for everything involving horizontal displacement and speed development.
So the purpose of our research was to see that in American football, how quickly our athletes were able to accelerate and get to their top speed as fast as possible. So the methods we did is that we used 45 Division I KU football players, and we had them do two 30-yard sprints on a 1080 sprinting device on 2 separate off-season workouts. So we categorized our athletes between skill positions, mids, and then we also classified them by their year, ranging from true freshmen all the way to redshirt seniors. What we found in our study was that the year 5 athletes had a significantly lower average speed and top speed compared to our year 1 athletes. As you can see, that our year 1 athletes were actually very exceptional this year, as they had the top average speed and top speed compared to everybody else that they're competing against. And along with that is that our offense showed a higher max speed along with a higher average speed as well whenever we calculated our data. The biggest thing that we saw from this research study was that we observed for anthropometrics, kinetics, and kinematics. But there wasn't too big of a difference between the mids and skill positions. The biggest difference that you can see in our graphs is that the year 5 athletes had a significantly slower average speed and top speed compared to everybody else.